Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the LaunchPad. The LaunchPad is an associate support workshop series covering level 1 of the PGM program. This week, we are going to be covering facility management. We've got LaunchPad veteran presenter, Jeffrey Brothers, who is the Director of Staff Support and of the Marketing and the Sport Division. I knew I'd butcher that, Jeff. Forgive me. At TaylorMade. He's been at TaylorMade now for a year and a half, but before that, he was the operations manager, or pro shop operations manager and assistant golf professional at the Crossings at Carlsbad. I was telling Jeff before we started recording that Jeff's operational savvy and his managerial prowess when it comes to business management is as good as I've seen in my 25 years in the golf business. And if I had my own club, I would be looking to bring him in as my COO. He'd be on the short list for that because he's so versed in it. I don't know if I know a better numbers guy in this business. Jeffrey, welcome to the LaunchPad. Thank you very much. Also, we've been doing this now quarterly for the last 2 years, and Jeffrey has taken the facility management portion and the business planning portion. He's taken the lead on this portion of the level 1 work experience kit these last 2 years, over 4 sessions. So Jeffrey, on behalf of the education committee for the Southern California section of the PGA, thank you so much for driving this and for owning this and for being such a great resource for associates that need support, because as I'm sure you'll talk about here shortly, the facility management portion of level 1 is definitely the toughest. There's no question about it in my mind, and there's no better person to provide the support and the networking and the mentorship than you. So thank you very much, Jeffrey. Welcome to the LaunchPad.
Thank you very much, John. And I guess so you can check your bank account. Thank you for all those kind words. and appreciate the opportunity to present again for everyone here today. As John said, the facility management or business operations, for those of you who attended on site and those of you who maybe did it, virtual, it's kind of getting fed with a fire hose. So there's a lot to cover. I'm going to try to keep it high level, but also touch on the different assignments and answer the why and the how. So I think the most important thing is, how do we get from A to B, and then why are we using this information in our assignments to get through the program? And I guess just to piggyback on, what John had shared, yes, I'm slightly new to the golf industry, but prior to this, I was a chef for 20 years, and so involved highly in business operations. And I guess with that being said, let's kick it off with respect to everyone's time. So we got facility management, and let me get on here. There we go. So 5 stages of the business planning model as per the PGA. We got to define the business, assess the current state. We need to get some goals, objectives, and strategies. We need to have financial forecasts and budgets, and then we got to monitor all that. Why are we doing this? Let's figure out if we're going to create all these plans and all these strategies, and we want to make money. We got to, are we making money at the end of the day, or are we losing money? Why business planning is important? I'm not going to sit and read every single slide, but just, there's financial goals, service goals, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, and we got to please the people investing in the business. For those of you, who are in leadership roles or will be eventually, there's 5 kind of aspects going to follow you around everywhere, no matter where you are. And that's, are your costs in line? Are your employees engaged? Are your customers satisfied? It's health and safety. And, are you able to make money? All those items are going to follow you around no matter what business you're in. So defining the business is why are we here? So why does this business exist? If we're a private club, we exist because, we want, a close-knit private membership, high-end service and offerings. I'm just going to actually stop for a second, a little bit of housekeeping. My wife's away. We have 3 cats and a dog. So if you hear random noises in the background, they're worried that I'm in this room with the door closed. So apologies if you hear some stuff in the background. Anyway, back to define the business. You know, who's coming? Who's our customers? You know, private club versus public facility. You know, different clientele, or you might have a driving range. You know, right now, most of the growth, you know, information has evolved since I initially put this together, but really a lot of the growth of the golf industry is non-green grass business. So the top golfs of the world, the full swings, you know, these kind of things are really the large percentage of growth right now. What drives us? Why do we exist? How do we make money? At the end of the day, we have to make money. What are we going to offer? You know, are we somewhere, you know, I'll use examples here locally. I live in Carlsbad. We have Goat Hill up in Oceanside. The tagline is world class, working class. You know, are we open to everyone? Do we have dogs? You know, people can show up at Goat Hill with no shirt, a shirt, no shoes, a dog, no dog, and probably a cat. You can go the underside of that. You have the Bridges at Rancho Santa Fe, high-end private club, very exclusive. I don't even think they really have that many, you know, tee times. Remember, just show up and play. So, you know, you got to figure out what the business is, who the clientele is. And some of that as well is based on geographic location, your customers, and your competition. Right now, those of you who are on this call or will listen to it, you know, after the fact, are going to know that we've had a massive boom of the golf industry. And it's really, how do you drive value and sustain that boom? Prior, I guess, as well, to coming into the golf industry, I went back to school and completed my master's in business. And my final thesis or capstone project was around driving value, you know, for the golf industry and driving business. How do we increase business in the golf industry? And could have scrapped it all and just wrote pandemic, apparently, but for another day. So starting off, when we're building, you know, getting down to the nitty gritty, we got to find out what this business is about. So everyone that's on, you know, here the call, I'm sure your place of business has a vision, mission, and values. And this is where you're going to be starting assignment 1. You got to find the vision, mission, values. Why do you exist? And so the vision has to be aspirational. It's not where you are now, it's where you want to be. I'll give you an example. I was working in the Middle East at Emirates Golf Club in Dubai, and we had a culture transition, which was it was awesome to be a part of that team, the transition team. And till this very day, I remember the mission, the vision we created was to be world leaders in delivering memorable golf and leisure experiences. And easy to remember. I still remember it, you know, 4, 8, you know, 9 years later, and I don't even, you know, have it in front of me. So I think it's important about the vision. It's aspirational. It's got to be memorable. And where do you want to be? The mission is, how do we get there? So how do we get there? Are we going to focus on our service? Is it our amenities? Our commitment to our, you know, shareholders, our investors? So the mission is, you know, we created this aspirational vision, and here's what we're going to do to achieve that. Values are like your personal values. They're your guiding, you know, they guide your decision making. Your values might be, you know, we're personable, we're dedicated, we're passionate, we're, you know, there's all these great, you know, aspirational words that can be values, and they can align with, you know, your personal values. And, you know, if you're creating them for your team, usually it's a really great experience to share that with your fellow colleagues, and so that values transcend across the organization as a whole. So we got some strategic planning and goals. So started off, define the business. Here's what we are. You know, we're a private club, and we got our vision. We want to be the best private club, I don't know, in the Southwest. We're going to get to that by providing world-class amenities to our members. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out here. Once that's in, we got strategic planning and goals. So there's a couple of different plans. We got long-term, these are 3 to 5 years. So these are ones, okay, we're starting now. Here's where we want to be in 3 to 5 years. And they're going to really drive and support the decisions making, the day-to-day operational decisions on how to achieve those. Short-term or 1 year, or your AOP, annual operating plan. Usually the objectives, forecast, the current state of the business. Well, it'd be interesting if you were to look at your business themselves, if you have access to the financial records, have a look at maybe pre-pandemic and then during pandemic, and let's say we'll call ourselves post-pandemic right now, maybe have a look at how those goals evolved. It'd probably be very interesting to see what your long-term goals were 4 years ago compared to what they might be now, because I'm sure they've evolved, because really the last couple of years have been benchmark years for revenue generation. When looking at these goals and we're deciding, our operating plan, our 3 to 5 year plan, got to figure out who are the customers, who's going to spend money at our property, at our facility. Where do they live? Their age, how much money do they make? Race, gender. And if you're looking for more reference to this, in the business management PowerPoint presentation you get from the PGA, it's slide 8 of level 1. So recap of phase 1, and like I said, this is very high level, and we're going to have a look at assignment 1, and it's we're going to, the first step, we need a vision, a mission, values, support those, a description of the facility, core business areas, how are we going to make money? Is it food and beverage, driving range? Are we going to have lessons? Are we going to have junior camps? Obviously green fees if you're a golf, course facility with a 9 or 18 hole course. And then how do we apply that to assignment 1? So let me see if I can just get out of here, and I'm going to bring up assignment 1. Okay. So assignment 1, those of you define the business. Here's how I believe there's a private course, and I forget the name of the other course. I did the private course, Summit Valley Country Club. Some core values. Here's some examples here. I had welcoming, pride, passion, customer focus, and innovative. Vision. You can see I might have piggybacked a little bit on the Dubai golf vision there, but I thought it was very aspirational what we had created at that club, and took a little bit for here. And you can see the facility profile, population demographics, how everything applies. Now, some of this is in the case study as well. You're going to pull this information depending on if you pick the private or public club. And a lot of these other headings here are very straightforward. This is information that's provided in the case study. I think the nitty-gritty of it is the first page here. Is this stuff here is what's going to drive, when we get down the road, how you're going to create your budget. And so this is how the first section you're going to apply into this assignment. Here's the mission statement. As I said, this supports the vision. We're going to provide sincere, personalized service to create a welcoming, inclusive community. We're going to enhance loyalty to memorable golf experiences. And so that's what's going to drive our vision. And so I'm not going to go through all of this because some of this is just for yourselves to create yourself. But that's a kind of a top level overview of how you're going to apply that into assignment 1. So we go phase 2. So we we got to the first phase. We created, I'll keep piggybacking here is the vision, mission, values. Who's going to come visit us? How are we going to make money? What are we going to sell to these individuals? What are we going to offer to these individuals? We got to assess the current state. So where are we now? Data analysis, page 47 to 50 in the case study and the information there, the booklet that comes with the business planning course. And so there's a couple of different ways to express when we're looking at assessing the current state. We did quantitative or qualitative. Quantitative, when you think of quantitative as numbers, as percentages, as hard data, it can be number of rounds. It can be the breakdown of your demographics or how much money you're making. And then qualitative is written. So it's a customer reviews, feedback, surveys, your Yelp review, your Google reviews. And those are, two of the most prominent ways that you're going to figure out how are you doing right now. Another way is do a SWOT analysis. SWOT, you can see is page 47 to 54 on the material for the business planning course. And there's internal strengths and weaknesses. So strengths, what do you do well? So you sit down and you make your 4 boxes, and you got your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Internal strengths, what are we doing well? How do we capitalize on that? Oh, we have amazing service and engaged team. Well, how do we use that to drive the business? Weaknesses, I don't know, maybe your facility doesn't have a great practice facility, but you have a driving range and you have a lot of really good golfers, but there's no opportunity for them to practice their short game. So that weakness could also be an opportunity. Maybe the public course, maybe you're a private club, and the public course down the street has a really good short game facility. All your members that are looking to practice end up going there and spend their money there. And well, you just lost an opportunity. So opportunities are external. They're usually, you look externally and say, okay, what is happening outside our business that we could add or we could do to greater enhance our offerings or our revenue generation. Threats are also external. Threats could be direct threats or indirect threats. So direct threat would be, you have your pro shop and just say you have a great selection of equipment, hard goods, soft goods, apparel, and all of a sudden the PGA Superstore opens 2 blocks away. Because they got this massive buying power, they're undercutting your prices, and now they're a threat to your business. They're taking your business. So that'd be a direct threat. Golf. Indirect is, so you have a facility, and it's a country club. A lot of families come in with their children, members. They want to use the facilities, but hey, soccer just started up and there's this amazing complex built just down the street. And a lot of the families, they may not have the financial resource to be members of the country club. So their kids are involved in soccer. Is it a threat? A little bit, because it's an indirect threat. It's taking away your business, towards another business. Opportunity, I don't know, maybe opportunities, you can build a soccer field within the club if you have the property to do it. And what they do, by starting, I wouldn't say a SWOT is the be all end all. There's a lot of other, this is a good tool. There's a lot of other great tools as well to perform an analysis of your operation. And we already covered this. Strengths, strengths you have control over. Weaknesses you have control over. Opportunities, how can you excel? You really want to capitalize. Threats, you can't really control what's happening. You can mitigate. So you mitigate by enhancing your opportunities. And you enhance your opportunity by capitalizing on your strengths. Or you work on your weaknesses to better your opportunity to mitigate your threats. So this one is quick recap of phase 2, analyze quantitative and qualitative data. And that's going to be really your two biggest assets, is feedback, whether it's verbal or whether it's, through actually hard numbers. Are you making more money than last year? Are the rounds up from last year? Are the driving range golf balls up from last year? If everything is up, and then you're getting surveys that, hey, the service is awesome as well, that's some positive feedback. And so let's recap of phase 2, and let's have a look at the assignment number 2. Here we go. So assessing the current state of the business. And really, you're going to grab a lot of these numbers out of the case study as well. I'm not going to read through this, but just so you have a kind of an overview, if you want to do a screenshot of that, or hey, I'm happy to share this if you want it for reference. We can talk about that after we finish the presentation today. And really, you just want to focus on a lot of these qualitative and quantitative, numbers or factors that, showing the success or the opportunities or the weaknesses of your business. And once again, once you get through this, which piggybacks off the initial, phase 1, is all of this is going to start coming together. And this is how you're going to build your budget. Because what all of these do, they create the base or the pyramid. So when you're building your budget, okay, and when you're building your budget, whether you're going to say you're going to make more money or you're going to say you're going to make less money, this is the golden nuggets that are going to qualify your statements. You're going to say, hey, we're going to make less money this year in this area because, or we're going to make more money because. And you utilize to build up to that through the assignments 1 and 2 and 3 to really quantify the statements that you're making when you start presenting that budget. So that's assignment 2. So like I said, a lot of this material, really want to, go through that, go through the I guess material. I use the word again. You get when, it's through the PGA. Make sure you go through that case study because a lot of that good information and the golden nuggets are in there. How you're going to apply them to these assignments. So now we assess the current state. And then we got to develop some goals, objectives, and strategies. So how we're going to do that? Once again, we got long-term, short-term, and then operations. Operations can be monthly, quarterly. They can be 1 year, and then we have short-term that are 1 year, long-term 3 to 5 years, and all these go hand in hand. So we got like the long term is the top of the pyramid, and then we work to the short term, then we work to the operational goals, or AOP, you might heard the term or acronym used. So the goal has got to be SMART, specific, meaningful, achievable, realistic, and time orientated. Probably not the first time, you heard this statement. They got to be clearly stated, and they got to be meaningful. They got to support their long-term vision. They got to be achievable, realistic, and time, orientated. So when they're going to be achieved. So, maybe a SMART goal would be to increase lesson revenue by 5% over last year's, to increase revenue by 5% in the first quarter of 2023 over quarter 2022, right? So it's very specific. We're going to increase revenue, lessons revenue by 5%. It supports a vision. The goal is to make more money. Is it achievable? 5%? Not, too outlandish or out of reach. Is it realistic? Well, if you put your mind to it and you got an engaged team, should be realistic. Is it time orientated? Yes, first quarter 2023, first quarter 2022. And then we have objectives. Objectives is how are we going to achieve these goals? Are they going to be annual or fiscal year end? So we set these goals. How are we going to get to them? If we set the goal, we're going to increase lesson revenue. Well, are we going to schedule more efficiently? Or are we going to hire more instructors? Are we going to increase rounds? How are we going to do that? Are we going to offer better deals on the course? Are we going to maybe move the tee times closer 1 minute to open up some more tee times? Objectives. How are we going to make the goals work? Strategies. Answer the question how. I was looking. I knew there was a typo in this entire presentation. It should be how will we achieve the annual objectives that support the long-term goals. I'll make that change for next time. So there's three different strategies. There's financial strategies, there's operational and promotional. So financial affect income or expenses. So do we need to spend money to make money? Rounds are down, but our greens aren't as good as our competitor, and our competitor is getting a lot more business than us. Well, maybe we better look at a capital project of spending money to improve our greens. I don't know, maybe they're 20 something years old and they need to be redone, whatever it might be. Or maybe our food and beverage offerings aren't as good as our neighbor down the road, and everyone plays golf here, but they leave and they go down the road and have their pint and their post round meal. So maybe we need to spend some money on infrastructure, maybe to spend money on our team, our staff that we have, our facility. Operational, affects daily operations. Operational strategies are, do we need to increase labor to provide better service? Do we need to, add to the roster in our golf shop or in our restaurant or on our grounds crew, to better to make our course more presentable. Promotional is how the business positions itself in the market. So really promotional is how do you utilize social media? How do you utilize marketing strategies? How do you promote the product that you have? So you got this amazing product and you want everyone to know that you have the most amazing product in the marketplace. So how are you going to deliver that and how are you going to tell that story? Looking for TaylorMade, just on a side tangent here, one thing I think we do really well as a company is we tell a story around the product. We tell a story around the player. We actually have our own in-house content studio and a content team that create all that content. You probably see Trotty on Instagram all the time. He's doing a golf ball review, or a new club comes out, or he's up at Bandon Dunes with someone playing. So how for yourself and your property, how do you tell everyone that we're the best and you need to be here with us? So recap of phase 3, you create meaningful goals that support the business's vision. So once again, we come back to phase 1, we created this vision. So our goals and our objectives have to support this. If we want to be the premier public golf facility in Southern California, well, we got to create goals that support that vision. We got to have a mission that supports that. We got to have strategies that support that, and objectives. So it's all starting to come together now. And once again, it comes back to either financial, operational, or promotional. And then we'll take a little look at assignment 3. And I'm trying to be mindful here of everyone's time as well. I know it's quite a bit to chew off. Happy at the end of this to answer some questions, or as well, happy, to send out the presentation or meet up I can provide my phone number after if you want to have a call or exchange an email. Happy to do that as well. So assignment 3 is all about these objectives. And so if you can see here, I decided, when I was looking at Summit Valley, I wanted to convert 15 social memberships to full equity memberships by fiscal year end. That's 8 individual, 7 family. And I showed what strategy we're going to offer financial options for potential new members. And it's promotional and financial. Also create new membership categories, including an under 40 or young professional membership or corporate equity membership. Once again, promotional, financial. So you can see these objectives are very specific, and they support, the current state where we want to go from there. And this are also going to be supported in the budget. So when the rubber hits the road here, and we're looking at how we're going to increase revenue, it's going to come back to this assignment 3. So when, of course, increase member tournament rounds by 8% by fiscal year end. And then so that's, quantitative, and an increase of 159 rounds and $5,565 in revenue. So very specific. It's timely. It gives a quantitative number. It gives how many rounds. It gives a time frame. And strategies introduce more mixed family and junior tournaments, and create a master calendar containing all tournament event dates accessible to members. This way they can have ample advance notice of events. So operational and promotional, financial. And there's I also created a merchandise objective. And through the assignment, there's different areas where you can focus on how you're going to drive your business through different strategies, how you're going to increase revenue. And these are ones that I chose. So these are ones that I chose that I knew I could support in the budget. Because when we get to the budget, what's interesting is that the budgets don't have to always make money in every category. So in assignment 3 here, I specifically chose these because these are the ones I wanted to focus on driving revenue. But there's some areas of the budget where I was like, yeah, we're going to be actually stagnant or level, or actually we're going to reduce. We're not looking at increasing. In this, actually, we're going to spend less. I think I might have spent a little bit less on like travel, or a little bit less on some other items. Budget can be minus in some areas, long as you can support it. It's always great to be making money everywhere, but the reality is sometimes you got to realize you're not going to always make money every year. And so long as you can support that with your payments, and provide that to your shareholders and deliver on it, most importantly, there's nothing wrong with that. So phase 4, we got how are we doing for time here? Okay, we're doing all right. Hopefully I'm not blasting through too much. I know John has heard me say this before. It's kind of like eating an elephant. You can only eat it one bite at a time. So once again, we've taken 3 days of material and trying to condense it down into just around an hour, so it's manageable pieces, so you can apply it, to the different assignments that you have to put together. So prepare financial forecast and budgets in phase 4. We got pages 65 to 92, and there's some metrics that you're going to find in there in that material. You got some key metrics. It's rounds versus yield. So really, how many rounds can we put on the course in one day, and how many are we putting on a day? If we can put, I don't know, let's say 85 rounds, just pick a number out of the air here, but we're only putting 40. Well, we're putting less than 50% yield, and we're losing a lot of revenue. So really, rounds versus yield is going to provide a great opportunity to see, are you really utilizing the times you have available to make money? Because most cases. I've been to or worked at a golf course where, yeah, we had lights on the golf course, but I haven't seen too many here in North America. Revenues, how much money are you making? Revenue, so don't confuse revenue with profit. You can make a lot of revenue, but if your expenses aren't in line, which is the middle of your balance sheet or your budget, you might not be making a lot of profit. But revenues, yes, can be a very key indicator on how you're doing. Are the revenues up from last year? If the revenues are up, hopefully the profit's up. If the revenue's up and the profit isn't up, it probably means you're spending too much in the middle. Cost of goods sold. Are you maximizing revenue from your sales? So cost of goods sold, really, you're maximized, I think, revenue. When you think of cost of goods sold, is really soft goods and apparel. That's where your biggest markup is. Yes, there's a bit of markup on golf clubs and golf balls, but really your biggest markup is apparel. And if you can move a lot of that, you're going to have a pretty good cost of goods sold. Gross margin is your profit from sales. So once again, gross margin is after all those expenses are pulled away from revenue. So revenue top line, profit bottom line, all that stuff in the middle, that's all where you're spending the money. And really good, leaders and managers and people that can make money are really good at managing the middle. They're good at managing what they're spending in between that revenue and profit line. Different metrics to look at, net operating income, vertical analysis. Vertical is like from year to year. Vertical, two values, in the same fiscal year, be vertical. Horizontal, you're going across from different years. You can have linear trend. It's a percentage up or down from one particular year, and base year analysis, where you have a reference point or benchmark years. For instance, you might use a benchmark year of the last 2 years with COVID, your rounds increase. So you could have a look at, say, hey, maybe here's where we were in 2019. Here's where we are in 2021. Well, maybe 2022 or maybe 2023 might drop down a bit from 2022. But if you look at it from 2019, you still might be up like 30%, right? So it's some of those you got to take with a grain of salt. You don't want to be comparing all your financial analysis or base year analysis on a benchmark year, because it's going to be tough to keep that budget, to deliver on it every single year thereafter. And all of this, once again, this is in the material. I just put it on here just for reference sake. And here's some other metrics. You get cost of goods sold as a percentage of sales, cost of goods sold as a percentage of gross margin, and revenue per round. If your customers come and just say they're paying $100 per round, how much of that $100 is going towards the bottom line? That's a good number to know. So you have different assumptions. When you're forecasting, assumptions, basically, you got to assume, here's what's going to happen. Here are external and internal factors coming back to your SWOT, how the business is going to evolve and change. Internal would be facility characteristics, the customer service, merchandise, financial resources, and staff resources. And then we're looking at forecasting. External, how can it impact our forecasting? Well, the market's booming right now for golf, right? So your forecasting is going to be based on this golf boom, based on your customers, your competition, your vendors, your product trends in the golf industry, and even the weather. Here in Southern California, I wouldn't say local weather, but climate, we're getting less and less rain, so expenses are probably going to go up in the watering category. And where is this water coming from? There's courses in Southern California here that have closed down because they don't have access to water, or the cost to access the water greatly exceeds their ability to generate the revenue to cover that. We need to validate the assumptions. And the way to do that is you run different scenarios and evaluate the numbers. You can do a sensitivity analysis. So sensitivity analysis is basically a big fancy name for doing the best and worst case scenarios in the business. Best case scenario, we spend all these money building new greens and it increases our business by 30%. Worst case scenario, we spend all this money on this capital project, improving the greens, and what happens? Our competitor, has this loyalty program, and they managed to retain all these customers we thought we were going to achieve. And then you can probably find somewhere in the middle, say, hey, well, maybe we wanted to gain 30%. We only gained 15%, so that's a happy medium. At least we didn't lose, any more off than what we're, our market share at the moment. So then, like I said, the rubber hits the road. We got to create the budget. We got to forecast revenue and expenses over the 12-month fiscal year. And this came in to assignment 3. So assignment 3, if those of you who are just getting into it or will get into it or have completed it, your budgets are going to be based on your determination where you're going to focus your revenue generation. And you're going to look at that and you're going to apply it to your budget. And you're going to see creating budgets 8485 of the material. And it's forecasted revenue and expenses over the 12-month fiscal year. And you want to consider, the seasons. I know right now, in the spring and summer, we get a lot of emails from the East Coast, the Northeast. And right now, not getting too much emails from, those clubs or those staff professionals on staff with us. Why? Well, it's fall, and I'm sure they're going to be seeing snow in the next couple of weeks. When consider when school is in or out, in the summertime, if you're a private club, you might not see as much business because all the families are going on holiday. Or if you're a public facility, you might see a lot more business because a lot of families are on holiday. Depends. Are you a destination for someone to come to? Are you abandoned dunes? Are you a Pebble Beach? Are you somewhere where people are going to come and visit you during the holidays? Once again, holidays and months when they occur. Conference season. If you're a facility and you do a lot of weddings, or that's part of your business plan. Hey, you want to increase weddings at your private facility or public facility. When do people get married? Usually between June and September. When is conference season? Conference season is about mid-January to May. And then you got around October to November is kind of the conference season as well. Once, kids get back in school and the business kind of find their stride and get ready for the fall. And we got to look at factors when you're creating your budget. You got your expenses, fixed and variable. Fixed or fixed. You can't really change them. You got to pay rent. You got to pay utilities. You got to pay salaries. You got to pay insurance. Variable vary. So think of it, variable vary based on business volumes. So you're going to have a core set amount of expenses in order to run the operation from day to day. That could be also called your break-even point, if you wanted to call it that. Your variable based on variable business. So if it's the summer, if we were to take, the crossings at Carlsbad down the road in the summer, they're on fire. Patio is full. They have massive patio, clubhouse, food and beverage, bev carts going. There's 2 or 3 a day, 4 maybe, full driving range. Their labor is going to be significantly higher than in the months from January to March when, whatever rain we do get here in SoCal is predominantly in those months. And so their expenses are going to vary based on the business volume. And also that sales, sales marketing, your cost of goods sold. If your business is slower, chances are you're moving less product, and then your cost of goods sold is variable as well. How are you going to determine expenses? So there's a couple of different ways. You can determine them as fixed amounts or percentage of gross revenues. So to touch on that, you can say, okay, if our business, our facility is going to make, I don't know, 5 million this year revenue, 5 million revenue. So we can say, okay, we're going to spend, I don't know, $500,000 on clubhouse management labor. Maybe there's a food and beverage director, an executive chef, a director of golf, head golf professional, whatever it might be. That's how we're going to spend, and that's it. Or you can do them, there's example when you have, or I guess you could have a fixed amount of how much are we going to spend on golf course maintenance, or, putting money into the green grass itself. We're going to spend, I don't know, like $750,000. I'm just like throwing numbers out here. Or you can do a percentage of gross revenues. You say, okay, we're making $5 million in revenue. We're going to spend 15% of that back into the golf course. That's going to be, fertilizer. That's going to be improvements. That's going to be, these kind of things. So you can determine them on a fixed amount. This dollar amount is what we're going to spend, or a percentage of our total revenue we're going to allocate towards this. Cash flow budget. So part of your budget itself is cash flow. Why is cash flow important? As they say, cash is king. Why is it important? Well, you need to have enough money to pay the bills at the end of the month. A difference from the monthly budget determines how much cash the business will have in the bank. So sometimes credit will not close at the end of the month. So if the credit hasn't closed, you might need a small short-term loan to pay your expenses. Monthly budget contains all sources of revenue, including credit. Credit is not cash until it's in the bank account of the business. So if you're waiting for those credit card transactions to process, there's the Canadian in me process. I think in the US, a process. You're not going to have cash in the bank. So cash is very important to have cash flow. You can establish lines of credit and assist in months of cash shortfalls. This may or may not be a question on the exam. Hint, hint. So we got part of budgets. We got capital budget, also known as CapEx. CapEx, think of it as items that will hit your balance sheet so you can depreciate against them. It's equipment. It's plant. Plant is in the actual building. It's property. You're upgrading your buildings. You buy a brand new mower for the greenskeeper because he needs one because the reels and everything else is shot, the engine. That would be a CapEx budget you set aside. CapEx is you're spending money to redo. For instance, my wife and I were members of a club here in SoCal and Carlsbad, and they just redid the entire course. They resawed it with turf. That would be a CapEx project. They can actually depreciate that over a certain amount of years, on the budget. Capital expenditures, once again, depreciated on the balance sheet. And then there's operational or OPEX. OPEX gets you from day to day. OPEX is like, do we need more chairs in the dining room? Do I have to buy a new computer for the POS system? That's OPEX. Do we have to buy new stands for our displays to put our clothing on? That's OPEX. Those things kind of just run their time, where a capital budget is like the big, the grand poopah expenses, the big ones. So phase 4 review, we don't determine the annual budgets based on goals, forecast monthly revenues and expenses based on internal and external factors. To run a few tests to see the best worst case scenarios and determine a realistic forecast for each month. Now, this section is a little bit interesting. I can show you a little bit, some of the assignments. This one is kind of one that you're going to determine on your own when building your budget. It comes back to how you're going to make revenue, or how are you not going to make revenue. And once again, you just got to quantify that statement. Here you can see my rationale. If I'm going to go up here, identify a set of assumptions, consider both internal and external. So these ones are kind of interesting because they move backwards. Yeah, player development revenue will increase by 12,000 in year 6. And why is that? What's the rationale for the assumption? Is because when I built, my kind of portfolio for this assignment here, is I want to put a new player development program. It's going to be implemented. And the assumption, member monthly dues will increase $10 for family, $5 for individual, and $5 for social. And the rationale why that's going to increase is because the increase of annual operating expenses. And that's why I'm going to increase. I'm going to cover that and maybe a little bit through those annual dues. Member tournament rounds will increase by 8% in year 6. And because we're going to help develop our players to get them more comfortable playing in tournaments, and we're going to focus on being more organized. If you go back to that operational plan, we're going to create a nice calendar of events that our members are going to have ahead of time. So hopefully you can see as these assignments progress, they are all going hand in hand with each other. And then once again, the other, goals I had were merchandise revenue, outside tournament revenue, instruction. And it's always that the rationale and the assumption go hand in hand. So one has to support the other. So when you're moving through this assignment, just make sure one supports the other, and it goes back to how you set your goals, which are going to tie into your budget. So I'm going to pull out of this one. And I'm going to bring up the actual, where is it here? 5, 4. Okay, actually, this is for review. So we're going to get back into this one. Page for review. Actually, apologize. I'm going to bring up the budget itself. Here we go. So this is the budget that I created. So as you can see, we're not going to go through all the different numbers, but you can see some of the numbers in here are negative and some of them are positive. And when you're going through your budget, if I were to look specifically at this number here, my weekday rounds are going to go down a bit, but my weekend rounds are going to go up. And I think my rationale behind that, when I went back to the assignment, was I was looking at increasing family rounds on the weekend, and that would, have some of the players that play in the weekdays maybe not play because they're playing with their families on the weekends, and then some of the attrition of the older members that are leaving the club as well. So I was able to, as long as I can quantify why the weekday rounds are going to go down and why they're going to go up on the weekends. And then, you look at member tournaments, here's a change. And that one there, I decided was going to go up. And then here I looked at, this particular one, I look at the rounds are going to go down for men, but we're going to look at focusing on women and juniors. So long as you can quantify why you're putting the numbers into your budget, the people that you're presenting to, your investors or your shareholders, that's what they're going to want to see. It's not a matter of is it up or down? Can you show why it's up, or can you show why it's going to go down? And that's more important overall. So we're in the last phase here, we're in the phase 5. And phase 5 is we got to monitor performance. So we put all this work, we built this vision, mission, values. We said where are we now? How are we going to get to where we want to go? And then we established some goals. And then we put together a budget with assumptions and forecasts. How am I doing, John? I think I still got a few minutes. I'm doing all right here. So this is page 93 to 95 in the material. And so why is this, why are we doing this? The why. It's important for comparing actual to forecasted numbers. So if we put together all this effort into building a budget and a business plan, and we're going to do this for the business, we're going to drive this way, and here's how we want to, increase revenue, here's how we want to be successful. Well, if we're not doing it, we got to know why we're not. And sometimes if the actual and forecast aren't the same, there's a couple of things we need to do. We need to reforecast, or we need to reduce our expenses. If we're not making the same revenue we thought we were, but we still need to make that same profit, we need to reduce expenses. Or we need to find creative ways to increase revenue. Or, do we need to increase labor? Labor is going to be one of your biggest expenses in your resource pool. One of your resources is labor. And if it's too much, maybe it's impacting the profit you're making off of revenue. Do we need to introduce promotions for unfilled tee times? Once again, the yield? So we have all these tee times that we have available. What's our yield? Are we maximizing the yield? Do we need to find ways to fill this to maximize our revenue? And come back to the metrics once again. Do we use rounds? We use yield management. Revenues per round, cost of goods sold. Are we making money? So we're bringing in, I don't know, our Peter Millar shirt. I just say that because all the other brands are competitors with TaylorMade, so it's just what I got to do. If you buy it for, I don't know, $40, but you're not selling it, and you got to sell it for $60 when really you should be selling it for 95 or $100. Are you maximizing your revenue on that? Your gross margin as a percentage of sales. Once again, sales or your revenue. If your gross margin isn't at percent you want it to be, or it's lower as a percent compared to what it was last year, well, you got to start looking at the middle of that budget. Where are we spending money? And we either got to start generating more revenue, or we got to spend less. There's only two ways to increase, your gross margin or your profit: make money or spend less. So we got tools for quantitative data when you're looking at, how you're gonna look at these metrics. Your point of sale system, generate sales reports, look at where you are. It can be monthly, quarterly, or annual budgets. Look at where you are realistically in relation to your annual operating plan. You got to look at real time versus where you want to be or where you should be. If you're over, that's amazing. But if you're under that, it's probably going to put an action plan on how to either achieve or reforecast. Look at previous year's budgets. Once again, be careful on benchmark years, but also, you got to be realistic when building a budget off a benchmark year as well. Another, good way, is spot audits. Do a daily check of the, when you generate that sales report for the day, are you on target? I think sometimes there might be too much focus on the daily. Maybe, yes, look at daily and have it as a reference point, but, long as you're hitting weekly and bi-weekly, I think those are pretty good indicators if you're going to hit your monthly. You don't want to be micromanaging the daily, because then I think you might lose the sense of the entire goal, because you're focusing on, too small of a chunk of the business if one day is lower than the next. How to respond to an underperforming budget. Once again, kind of regurgitating similar was on the previous slides. Revisit the annual budget and reforecast. You might have to say, hey, we're not going to make this much money this year, but as long as you can support that statement. The other ways, you increase revenue through promotional activities or reduce expenses to align with decreased or increased revenues, which would bring us to our last assignment, which is assignment 5. And I think that's right here. So we're looking at monitoring the business, and this one is pretty straightforward. And it's basically just applying, what was in those slides, which is basically in your material as well. You got primary and secondary ways of tracking your performance. You can look at your total revenue, your profit and loss statement, total rounds. You can do this quarterly. You can compare quarter 1 to quarter 2. You can do first quarter 2022 to first quarter 2021. And, those are pretty good guidelines. You see where you are, because each quarter, obviously, as they build up, it's going to tie into your annual goals. And secondary, you can look at total rounds, food and beverage revenue. Food and beverage is a secondary revenue if you're a golf facility, but it's also an important revenue. Member tournament rounds, you can look at how are you going to track it. If you're tracking your member tournaments, use a spreadsheet with member conversion from year to year. Hey, maybe this year we had the member guest, we had 80 players last year. But this year we had 120 players. What did we do right? You want to track that. Profit and loss statements, annual operating budget. And a lot of this stuff is very straightforward. And I would say kind of common sense. Your frequency, you can look at weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And usually those of you who have the opportunity to sit in these meetings and speak about budget, it's usually once a week, they're going to sit down and then they're going to piggyback and figure out, hey, from last week to this week, are we meeting our monthly, quarterly, biannually, bi-monthly numbers? And if we're not, what do we need to do? And if we are, that's awesome. How do we greater capitalize on it? And you also want to set in tolerances. Yeah, you build your goals, into your budget, or you build, your assumptions and how to support them. But also you're going to say, okay, our goal is, 15 achieved by the fiscal year, but our acceptable tolerance, we're going to 1 a month, and the variance is going to be 2 member conversions will be considered acceptable, but the overall sales goal will be there's another typo, sorry, we'll have more members than the previous year. So okay, we might not have 2 conversions, but maybe we generate more because we got more equity members by going out and marketing and getting into the field and finding those new members for our course. Corrective adjustments, straightforward. It's in the material itself. And really, these are just metrics going through. Once again, ties into in your objectives. You said, I'm going to make money this way. In your budget, you said, here's how me, as in the leader, creating this business plan. Here's how we're going to make this money. Here's going to impact the business. Here's how it's going to impact the bottom line. And these are metrics on how we're going to monitor if we're making this money or if we're not making this money. And if we're not, what's acceptable. And if we aren't as well, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan on how we're going to put our best foot forward to achieve these goals. Right. So I think at the end of the day, it's do you have a plan? What's the plan at the end of the day? If we're going to make it, let's make more. What's the plan? If we're not going to make it, okay, no problem. Well, here's the plan. We're going to reforecast, or here's the plan. We're going to do this so we can increase revenue. So either way, once again, comes back to justification. How are we going to justify all of our assumptions? How are we going to justify our budget? How to justify our business plan? And that's kind of it in an overall, once again, I understand it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to definitely present. Hopefully it gives you some context around, what do I do with all of this material and how do I apply it? Like I said, you got 3 days of business, whether it's virtual or if you attend, I'm assuming it's at Frisco now, not in Port St. Lucie. But if you do attend, it's kind of fed with a fire hose. And how do I apply this and make it, you're given all this information. How do I pull out, I'll say, the gold nuggets and utilize them? This slide here, there's my number. If you want to write it down, more than happy to take a call, or more than happy to share my email if you have any questions. And then as well, we got next steps. There's one-on-one mentoring available, like I said, through myself or through the SoCal section. We have Tom's son who heads it up, and he's at Arrowwood Golf Club, and his assistant general manager, Nikki Pritchard, also available. And then there's a national line in there, and we have Tom Parker, who's out of PGA West. He's available as well. And just because I always want to be formal and not be accused of stealing anyone information, these are the references of where I got the material. So no one can say that I took this, without asking.
Well, Jeffrey,
Everyone, I
again,
appreciate your time.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just saying, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, thank you for taking us through the in-depth review on the facilities management and business planning model of the PGM Level 1 program. Truly good stuff. Like I said, you know your stuff. And for those of you that don't know Jeffrey, he has been at TaylorMade for the last year and a half, and then prior to that, he was at the Crossings at Carlsbad. And with his skill set and his business savvy and prowess, I wouldn't be surprised to see you back running a club in the near future. But thank you very much for coming on the webcast today, and for everybody that's on the live recording, and also those that are viewing this after the fact through the LaunchPad drop down on the SCPGA website. We will be sending out the YouTube recording of Jeffrey's presentation this afternoon, and feel free to reach out. A big portion and a big positive of the LaunchPad Associate Workshop Series is the networking and the accessibility of the people that have gone through the program recently and the resources that are out there for all the associates in the section. And again, I'm on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for presenting this afternoon. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.